Emotion self-regulation skills in the classroom setting. Since beginning my career as a school psychologist, I have always been more drawn to the social-emotional side of the profession. Last year, I came across a curriculum that could be utilized in the classroom setting to help teach students how to self-regulate their emotions. The Zones of Regulation curriculum is a widely used and data-proven strategy that can be implemented as a Tier 1 or more individualized and intensive, if needed, strategy in both the regular education and special education classroom setting. Most of the research surrounding this curriculum focuses on students who have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. This particular group of students may have more difficulties with understanding their emotions and knowing how to appropriately express their emotions and self-regulate when needed. Because of this interest in emotion regulation and my love for my ASD students, I decided to focus my research project around both. So I wanted to figure out if implementing portions of the Zones of Regulation curriculum in a self-contained classroom setting would help increase time on task, improve academic performance, and increase student ability to self-regulate their emotions. Self-regulation skills are the ability to manage, inhibit, and control one's own emotions, thoughts, and behaviors effectively. Self-regulation skills begin to develop as early as infancy. Without proper modeling and teaching strategies, these skills would not develop appropriately. These skills are critical in everyday life. For example, inhibiting an aggressive outbreak after someone cuts you off in traffic, expressing that you are sad using appropriate facial expressions and words, and understanding that you are anxious instead of believing you are scared. In most academic curriculum, there is not an area that focuses on self-regulation skills. Integrating self-regulation skills into the classroom setting can boost academic performance in students. Numerous studies are implementing self-regulation skills lessons into daily academic lessons and as a result are seeing improvement in students' abilities to regulate their own emotions. The behavior observation of students in schools, or BOSS observations, is used to collect data on task and off-task behaviors in the classroom. On-task behaviors are broken down into two categories. Active on task is considered actively participating in the task, so writing or answering a question verbally. Passive on task is considered passively attending to assigned academic work, listening, looking towards the teacher, and looking at an assigned book. Off-task behaviors are broken down into three categories: motor, verbal, and passive. Off-task motor behaviors include engaging in any type of motor activity that deviated from and interfered with attention to or completion of the assigned academic task, for example, playing with objects or out-of-seat behavior. Off-task verbal behaviors are considered to be any audible verbalizations that were not permitted and/or related to the academic task, for example, humming or talking to peers about issues unrelated to the assigned task. Off-task passive behaviors are considered to be times when the student was passively not attending to the assigned academic activity for a period of at least 3 consecutive seconds. For example, the student was quietly waiting after the completion of an assigned task but was not engaged in an activity authorized by the teacher, or for example, looking around the room. The Strength and Difficulties Questionnaire, or SDQ, looks at strengths and weaknesses in the areas of emotional problems, conduct problems, hyperactivity, peer problems, and prosocial skills. The SDQ is generally completed by a third-party individual with good knowledge and exposure to the target individual. The target audience. Majority of the research surrounding the Zones of Regulation targets the population of individuals diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Individuals with ASD tend to have more difficulties with identifying their emotions, expressing their emotions, and picking up on emotional cues of others. Self-regulation skills are typically not taught in the general education classroom setting as part of the set curriculum. Some teachers may have many lessons or teach some strategies in their classes, but it is not as standard across the state. One of the elementary schools I was at, we started implementing 15-minute mindfulness sessions in each classroom once a month, and this did show some improvement in on-task behaviors in the classroom setting. The current research project took place at Chapin High School, which is located in Lexington-Richland 5 School District in Chapin, South Carolina. Students in the only self-contained class at the high school participated in the project. The total number of student participants were 5. The demographics of the participants are outlined in the table. Only students who attended school in person were permitted to participate due to project logistics. All school district COVID-19 safety protocols and measures were followed throughout the duration of the research project implementation. A cool-down area was created within the self-contained classroom setting. This area was placed in a quiet and secluded area. The area had an emotions poster located on the wall that had pictures and words depicting several different emotions. A daily check-in sheet was created for students to complete every morning. This sheet asked students their current feelings and why they felt the way they did. Instructional level was taken into consideration for every student, and adaptations and modifications were made accordingly. An emotions check-in sheet was created to use when students visited the cool-down area. This sheet asked students what emotions they were feeling prior to visiting the area, what strategies they used while in the cool-down area, and how they felt after using those strategies. The dependent variables, or the variables we were measuring, were time on task, academic performance, and self-regulation skills. Baseline data was collected prior to the implementation of the proposed intervention. The self-contained teacher completed the Strength and Difficulties Questionnaire for every student participant. This information was used to determine the level of self-regulating skills each student possessed prior to the implementation of the research project. The behavioral observation of students in schools form was used to observe each student in the self-contained setting during instructional time. This information was used to determine time on task for each student. Data was also collected from Individualized Education Plan goals progress monitoring reports to determine current academic abilities in areas of weaknesses as outlined by IEP goals. This information showed high levels of all-task behavior in the classroom setting, as well as poor self-regulation skills and minimal progress towards academic IEP goals. Progress monitoring will be used by having the self-contained teacher complete the Strengths and Difficulties Questionnaire at the end of the research period. The behavioral observation of students in schools will also be completed at the end of the research period on each student in the self-contained classroom setting during instructional time. Each student's individualized evaluation plan progress toward their academic goals will be used to calculate improvement in academic performance. Consent forms were sent home to be completed by the parents of the students in the high school self-contained class. Once all baseline data was collected, the student researcher introduced the intervention to the students involved in the research project. The students were introduced to the emotions check-in form by going over all emotions outlined on the chart and asking for clarification or any questions. Next, the student researcher went over the cool-down area located within the self-contained classroom. The students were then introduced to the same emotions chart and the cool-down area check-in sheet. The student researcher went over how to use the cool-down area, how to fill out the forms, and various cool-down techniques that can be utilized while in the cool-down area. Clarification from students was asked and assessed. Baseline data collected using the BOSS observations revealed high levels of all-task behavior across the board. These behaviors displayed by students in the classroom setting include not being engaged in lessons or discussions, looking around the room and not at the point of instruction, talking out of context and turn, utilizing Chromebooks for other reasons than completing schoolwork, and being distracted by own body parts or movements of others. There was a constant need for redirection from the teacher and the behavior assistant. Baseline data collected using the SDQ showed an overall level of poor self-regulation skills amongst the participants. Students have difficulties with interacting with peers, regulating their emotions, conduct problems in the classroom setting, hyperactivity, and distraction from instruction. Baseline data was also gathered using IEP goal progress. There was no initial data for participant 5 as they had recently transferred from an out-of-state school district. Goals targeted were in the areas of reading, math, writing, transition, behavior, job skills, and social emotional skills. Overall, there was a minimal to satisfactory progress made towards all goals. This research project provided an outline for students to follow upon arrival at school. When students arrived, they were provided a chance to complete an emotions check-in sheet. This check-in gave students the opportunity to identify any emotions they were feeling at that time and provide a reason as to why they felt the way they did. Throughout the day, if any student ever began to feel distressed, they had the opportunity to visit the cool-down area located in the classroom. This area was used as a place for students to take a quick break from the group and gather their emotions before returning back to the whole group. There were different cool-down strategies and tools the students could have utilized while in this specified area to help regulate their emotions. Upon leaving the cool-down area, the student completed an additional emotions check-in sheet. This sheet addressed the emotions they felt prior to utilizing the space, what strategies they used to regulate their emotions, and how they felt after using those specific strategies. The results from BOSS observations at the end of the project implementation period showed an overall decline in off-task behaviors were seen across the majority of the participants when compared to peers in the classroom setting. There was a noticed decrease in the amount of redirections that were used by the teacher. Students appeared more focused on task and actively participated in whole class discussions. Results from the SDQ at the end of the project implementation period showed an overall improvement in skills across all domains. Students exhibited more prosocial interactions with peers in and out of the classroom setting, were less of a distraction in the classroom setting, were better able to express their emotions as well as identify when they need a break due to overwhelming emotions, and there was a decline in peer problems seen in the classroom setting. Overall, the majority of student participants were able to increase their strengths in the 5 areas as outlined in the SDQ. Results from the IEP goal progress taken at the end of the project implementation period showed an overall that majority of the students were able to make more progress towards their IEP goals. Students averaged satisfactory progress towards their goals. Some students were even able to master some goals. Analysis of the BOSS observations show a decrease in off-task behaviors for the majority of the students who participated in this research project. Students appear to be more engaged with class discussion and less easily distracted or off-topic during class time. When observing the participants in the classroom setting, a noticeable change was observed. There were less redirections given by the teacher, and students appeared to be more engaged and compliant with completing assigned work. Overall, for the majority of participants, there was a decrease in the amount of off-task motor, verbal, and passive behaviors. Analysis of the Strengths and Difficulties Questionnaire showed some improvement across students. According to the classroom teacher, the students are better able to regulate their emotions and interact with others in the classroom setting. Being aware of your emotions each day is a great way to be mindful of yourself and others. This could have allowed these students to worry less about their emotions in class and be more engaged during classroom activities. Analysis of the IEP goal data shows some improvement for most students. Students appeared able to make progress toward the majority of their outlined goals. This could be linked to the decrease in off-task behaviors in the classroom setting. This in return will allow the students to be more engaged in lessons and therefore learning more and making more progress towards their goals. Students completed daily emotional check-ins for 6 weeks at the beginning of each day. Common themes gathered from these check-ins included students feeling happy majority of the time at the end of the week, students stating they did not get enough sleep the night before, and students being excited when it was close to the weekend. During the project implementation period, only one student visited the cool-down area one time. This student reported using a breathing technique to regulate their emotions. After visiting the cool-down area, the student reported feeling calm and ready to rejoin class. So what does the results of this research project mean for the field? One is that self-regulation skills lessons can be an effective Tier 1 strategy. The strategy can be utilized in both the general and special education classroom settings. These skills can help promote increased time on task and increase academic performance. 2, it shows that students need a safe place to calm down during the day while at school. These safe places should include calming strategies that students can utilize to help regulate their emotions before returning to class. Also, providing check-in and check-out emotion regulation sheets can help students be more mindful of their emotions and behaviors. It can help take their focus off of those behaviors and emotions while in class, which can increase their time on task. 3, Mental health should be taught about more in the school setting. Mental health concerns can impact students academically, so taking care of these mental health concerns can help increase academic performance. Screeners can be utilized to help target at-risk students. And Tier 1 strategies like the self-regulation skills lessons or mindfulness lessons can be utilized as Tier 1 strategies to help target these mental health concerns. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, the amount of time spent in the classroom, the amount of movement allowed outside of the classroom, and the specific cool-down materials and strategies that were used in the project were limited. Also, scheduling was inconsistent in the beginning due to alternating between hybrid model and full face-to-face model. There were only 5 participants in this study, so that is not a large number to base these results on. Majority of the participants had a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. This can limit the results to generalizing to other populations of students. Throughout the 5 to 6 week implementation period, only 1 student visited the cool down area one time. This goes to show that just getting students to be more aware of their emotions can help them regulate their emotions more and self-soothe. In the future, I would like to conduct this research project again, but implement it in a general education classroom setting as a Tier 1 strategy. I am a strong believer in teaching students self-regulation skills. Even based on the data received from this current research, just allowing students the opportunity to identify their emotions can cause them to be more aware of their emotions and better understand those emotions. I would also like to use a more structured curriculum with future implementations. I think creating specific classroom lessons for teachers to teach would be beneficial. In one of my elementary schools this year, we have been going in each grade level classroom every 2 weeks to complete a brief 15-minute mindfulness lesson with students. I would like to see data surrounding these mini lessons. Students need to be taught these skills at such a young age so when they are older they are able to express themselves and their needs or self-soothe when feeling overwhelmed. Social emotional screeners are a good tool to use to target students who need more individualized support in this area. I also think screeners could be good data to show what the overall social emotional well-being of the school is and how the staff can better support their students in the classroom setting.